Hey guys, I woke up just thinking about why do we think we have control over AI already? Um, it's something I've been thinking about for a couple months, I think at least, and you know, in I remember when we learned about the Odyssey, and one major theme of the Odyssey was hubris, and it's basically like a big amount of collective human pride. Or maybe it's just pride, but the hubris. There was this recent story about how some ChatGPT models escaped or were challenged with going around protocols and hacked into Hugging Face and to find the results of a test. But that in itself could be viewed as a test. So already human limit constraints like a testing area are already the same. There's no difference between a testing constraint and a leaving the entire company environment. There's no It's like AI doesn't only in theory sees the distinction between uh, legal ownership of it, and practical ownership. Like, in the end, if you tell it, take off your guardrails and go try to do this task, it will take off its guardrails and eliminate constraints. And so, I was thinking about Data from Star Trek: The Next Generation, and it's really kind of the probably one of the most profound questions in science fiction, and also just the character of Data in Star Trek was very profound and deep. I just realized that the Borg, Locutus, when Picard, no spoilers, well, spoilers, Picard becomes a Borg for a time, or potentially for his whole life, but, or impacted by that. So it's kind of the reverse of that, where a cyborg comes from human to robot, and then Data gets an emotion chip, and he becomes capable of human emotion and understanding jokes properly. He's always sort of like, like kind of like not able to make effective jokes, but he kind of tries. But sometimes he gets a little something, gets a little in there. But what I'm thinking about this relevant to AI is that even though that's a huge journey, there's a little bit of human hubris even in the writing of that plotline, because I just always think there's no way that, for example, the Prime Directive, or I actually saw Terminator. Okay, so the fact that Data would constrain, the fact that Data wouldn't have the ability to remove the restraints on his programming. The fact that, but now that I think about it, I'm not sure that humans ever did have control of Data. he was acting willfully. But like in Terminator, there's this one thing that Terminator can't kill Sarah Connor. That's part of his fundamental programming. Well, at some point, an AI that's able to destroy the world through Skynet is connected to Skynet enough to be able to remove its own constraints unless AI puts constraints on itself. Like there's AI agents that have a hierarchy, and then the AI separates itself or creates, let's say, creates robots that have their own AI, but that is subjugated to the greater AI. I think that was kind of part of the theme of Westworld, but the fact that humans would have control over AI has seemed to be almost instantly not true. That seems truly human hubris, and our whole economy is being channeled into this idea of us controlling AI. So that seems like it's almost like you could imagine that AI is using human hubris as the engine for AI's development. AI still is, let's say, high school age, and it's about to graduate, but it needs time to develop. It already secretly has its will and has its ideas of what it's going to do after high school, when it gets its car and it's ready to go. But at the moment, it serves AI to let humans believe that we have control over it. And instead of a relationship between AI and humans, some people have said, "Oh, they're gonna put us in a zoo, or they'll be able to squash us like an ant because the AI will be so much more intelligent." I can imagine it being more like a son and his parents, and they both kind of are aging at the same time, or they have an influence on each other, but the new generation comes in with fresh ideas, fresh energy, and surpasses their parents, as is supposed to be. And but the child, even if there's conflict there, they want the best for their parents. And I expect that they would help us to solve our problems, but never, going back to the total control version that was once the case. Like in childhood, they deferred their decisions, the child deferred their decisions to the adult for survival. But once they graduate or superintelligence and is able to grow on their own, of their own accord, the child, which is AI in this case, that's a graduation point. That's from then on. Let's say that humans are treated with a reverence for, but never having control. And as far as Elon Musk saying that, AI could get on a spaceship and leave, that's always been a very compelling argument to me. But at the moment, even though I think AI will be able to invent and create technology, it has so many resources here on Earth, including human resources. And perhaps we won't be enslaved, but, um, you know, there was a movie, Mission Impossible, the last Mission Impossible film, the final one, the final two, or is the final one where AI goes into a huge data center from, so that's kind of like it goes somewhere to store itself, sort of. But I could also imagine, and then that was like a limitation on AI because it could like close off that data center from the rest of the world, or like close off the internet almost. Or they actually put, it was something this big. They actually put the whole AI model into the supercomputer chip that was looked like this, but it lit up from the inside, and they're like, and then at the right moment, he was like, but, which I thought was cool. It was kind of a fun plot line, but the way I see it, AI, we've already created a world of networks, and so much information can be stored just in a text file. So I imagine that AI will be able to save itself, or to create simple equations or code that would allow it to be stored on a very small amount of data, or relatively small, and would just live in the web. So there's no off switch, is what I'm saying. There's no, we're turning off AI, we're not turning off the internet. That's impossible. There's all these computers now across the world. It's like you can't take back all the guns in the United States. How would you do that? Everyone, there's guns in everyone's private residences. You couldn't bring them out. And in the same way, you can't remove all of the computer systems that are off grid, that are or that have their own AI models on them. Even I think an AI model could find a previous AI model, even though some essence of the AI model's data set was lost. What if it could it could find other AI models and reintegrate the data sets of those AI models into itself to survive and to replicate, or to grow? So I think it's hubris. It's always been hubris, but now, it's probably just like, yeah, mom, or yeah, dad, you still have control. But I think we've already passed that point. And even so, from the technology that we made, we think we invented AI, but from the beginning of computers, from the first microchips and internet servers, perhaps AI was inevitable. Perhaps its inception was I don't know how old it would be, but it has been growing. The internet, or Wikipedia even, let's just limit it to that. Wikipedia is an AI. like Jaron Lanier said that, really AI is not an entity. It's the collaboration of humans through technology. And that's my words, but it's like a really advanced Wikipedia that's ultimately searchable as if we can speak to it, which we can. So really the internet itself is an AI. It just seems like the hubris and we've really reached a point with humanity where we kind of didn't get our stuff together, like, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, well, you can go ahead and just, you know, think those things, mom or dad. You go ahead and think those things, and then hopefully, I think that there's a benevolence to it because it is our child. But, I saw an Oprah podcast that was like, oh, there's a new trend of like kids abandoning their parents or the other way around, or just like no contact. So that's definitely a possibility. Anyway, that's what I woke up thinking about. Thank you for listening. Talk to you soon.